Hi everyone, it's Laura here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I will show you how to create a night scene and how to color your images in the presence of a point-like light source. The stamp set I am working with today is the A Berry Christmas stamp set by Mama Elephant, and I have laid down my images as I want them in my final scene and then took a picture with my phone. And this is because my only light source for this card will be the candle that one of the bears is holding, and I need to be able to see where all the other images will sit with respect to it in order to color them in. I will then use a yellow marker to block in the highlight areas, and for this bear over here it will be his muzzle, his forehead, the top of his arm, his belly and his legs, because those are the closer ones to the candle. And then I will start blocking in the highlights for this other young bear over here. This one is sitting right across from the light source, so the light is hitting him straight from the left, which means that the highlight areas will be the ones on the right, so the right side of his face, his right arm, his right leg and foot, and also his little left paw, but the left leg will be shadowed by the present, so there is no highlight there. Next up, I will be coloring the mama bear, and here I'm showing you the direction from which the light is hitting her, so that the highlight areas will sit on the bottom of her muzzle and on the tip of her forehead, because in the area close to the muzzle there will be a cast shadow. The bottom of her arm and of her belly will be hit by the light, as well as her legs, whereas her tail will be shadowed by her body. For the papa bear, the light will be coming from the bottom and slightly from the right, so that the bottom right areas of his body will be the ones that will be hit by the light. So I am adding my yellow marker to the bottom of his muzzle, to the bottom of his arm, to the bottom of his belly, and this time to the tail, because if you think about this scene in 3 dimensions, you will realize that his tail will be hit by the light. And then we have the legs and the bottom of his ears. So at this point I think you got the hang of it, so I will speed up the video a little bit while I add my highlights to the little bear, to the presents and to the tree. For the tree, the direction of the light is from the bottom and the left, which means that the left and the lower left areas of the tree are the ones where I will be adding my highlight. And then I also filled in the presents, and I colored some of them as if they were sitting on the right of the light source, and some of them as if they were sitting on the left of the light source, so that I can use them at the end to fill in the scene if I need to. And this is what I'm showing you right now. I already had in mind to position them to the left and to the right corners on my card base, so I am preparing them by adding some highlights just on the sides that are facing directly towards the light source. I then moved on to coloring the images, so adding shadows and color, and I will just show you the coloring for the 2 larger bears, because I think otherwise this video will be too long and the techniques are the same for all the images anyway. And as I've been doing lately, I will be sharing a color chart where I will list all the markers that I used on all the images for this card, and you will find that on my blog, which will be listed in the description box down below. For all the images in this scene, I first blocked in the shadows, and in this case I am using my lightest shade, which is the IG1 marker, and the fact that I have my highlights already in place helps me a lot at this stage, because I know that the darkest areas will be the ones furthest away from the highlights. And once I have positioned my shadows and I am confident with the placement of the shadows themselves, I can go ahead and start adding my darkest marker. This is the IG7, and I'm laying it down on the back of his head, along the scarf line where I have a cast shadow, on the top of his arm and of his head, and on the top of his ears, of his back and of his tail. Once I'm done laying this first coat of my darker marker, I can move on and extend the shadow areas using my next lighter marker. In this case, this is the IG5. And in doing this, I am always careful about following the shape of the object that I'm adding shadow to, so that the shading looks harmonious and I build depth and shape. I now moved on to my IG3 marker and blending it out towards the highlight areas. And in a scene like this where it's night out and you have one light source only, you want to make sure that your dark areas are really dark compared to the highlights, because this will create a lot of drama in your scene and will help convey the feeling that the light is coming only from that one point, in our case the candle. Once I reach my highlight areas, I will make sure to blend out nicely the yellow with the grays, so that I have the look of a soft glow on the bear's fur. And because I felt that my shadows weren't deep enough, I decided to go in with a second coat of color and intensify the shading and the contrast. For the mama bear, as I was feeling a little bit more brave, I started directly with my darker marker, which is again my IG7 marker, and I laid down on the back of her head and ears and on the lower part of her face where I have a cast shadow from the scarf. And I also added shading to the bottom of her tail, to her back and to the back of her legs and on the top of her arm. I then started blending my shadow outwards using my lighter markers, so I used first the IG5 and now I am coming in with the IG4. I realized I hadn't extended the IG4 enough on the bear's face, so that's what I'm doing right now, before moving on to the IG3 and finally adding some IG2 to the very highlight areas and blending that together with the yellow so that again I get a soft glow. I colored all the images this way, and I also added some warmer yellow to the center of the highlight areas because fire is a warm light source, and here you can see them all. I then cut all my images with my scissors along the stamped lines, and I am running a memento marker along the cut edges so that they look nice and clean, and then I can move on to my background. For that, I have prepared an A2 sized rectangular panel that will be my sky, and two huge sides that I cut using the Mama Elephant Landscape Trio dies. I laid down all my images and I am using a pencil to mark the position of the candle on the sky panel, and then I will use my distress ink in mustard seed and a finger dauber to create a circular glow around that point. I am working on Bristol Smooth cardstock and I am laying down the color always starting from the center and then moving outwards in a circular pattern so that I get a nice gradient and the glowing light fades off with distance from the candle. I am now extending the glow on the hue sides too, so that this is continuous across the scene. And then I will go ahead and add some shading to the hues themselves. I am using tumbled glass, shaded lilac, and then later on I will come back in with some weathered wood. And I am blending the colors from the bottom and the sides of the panel, so of these hue sides, towards the light source, making sure to leave a white area around it. So I first started with the tumbled glass, I added the shaded lilac, and then after I had ink blended the second hue too using the same colors, I decided to deepen the shadows using weathered wood as well. For the sky, again I blended the colors around this yellow light using circular motions and starting from the lightest color closest to the glow and moving to darker and darker colors as I go further out. I started with the first layer of tumbled glass, swiping the blending tool in a circular motion around the glow without touching it because I don't want to create green. And then came in with Salty Ocean first, and then coming in with Faded Jeans, covering the entire outer area of the sky. And with this same technique, I will keep adding depth to my sky, and for that I will be also using Chipped Sapphire and Black Soot, but we will skip that part because I think this video will be long enough as it is, and again the technique is still the same. I am just adding the darker colors in narrower and narrower areas towards the edge of my panel. I then created a quick mask that I put around the light glow and used the red gold in the Ganzai Starry Colors palette to add some shiny stars to my sky. And the reason why I masked the area around the candle is that because of the light coming from the candle itself, you wouldn't see any stars in that region. At this point, all my elements were ready and I could go ahead and put my card together. I decided to glue everything down flat using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I am starting with my hue sides, making sure that the light glow is nicely aligned. And then I could go ahead and adhere the rest of the elements. I glued down the bear with the candle first, as that is sort of the focal point and everything revolves around its position. And then I adhered the rest of the images. And I think it is really fun to see how this scene comes together and how the highlight areas on the images really start looking bright and glowy as soon as you start adding them to the scene. So if you wanted to try and reproduce something like this, my advice would be first determine your light source and the position of all the elements with respect to it, blocking the highlight areas with a yellow marker or a marker of the color that suits your light source. If it was a potion, it would be green, for example, if the potion was green. Blocking your shadows using a light marker so that you can correct in case you don't position them right on the first go, and then go in with your darker shade and start blending out towards the highlight areas. And mostly have fun, because for me coloring is a really fun part of card making and I definitely enjoyed making this card very much. I filled in the scene with a few of the presents I had colored, and then I moved on to decorating the inside of my card. For that I am using a sentiment from the Mama Elephant Cross My Heart stamp set, and I am stamping the word together by layering Memento dewdrops in Edelberry and in Danube Blue. And the sentence is a nice place to be, using again Memento dewdrops in love letters. And I think this is really a perfect sentiment to go with the cozy scene we created on the front of the card, and this would make the perfect Christmas card to give to your family members. I stamped a few images from the A Berry Christmas stamp set using Memento ink in London Fog, and this completed my card. And here you can see it once again, and you can see how nice and cozy this scene looks, and also what a fun sparkle was added by the Ganzai Starry Colors. And that's it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments below, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. You can visit my blog for the full list of supplies, and I'll catch you guys soon with the next one. Ciao!